It's your girl again, Chantress. I'm out here on these YouTube and IG streets coming today because I have a whole lot to say. Trying to get you a glimpse of this wonderful piece of nature as the sun begins to rise. But anyway, let's talk about the natal chart. The natal chart, your aspects and your placements in your natal chart. When you look at your natal chart, it's not just like some hocus pocus. Let me just give you a quick little fortune for today concerning your astrology and astronomy and the constellations, the planets, the moon, and the sun. Your natal chart, if I could convey it to you, the most effective way that I could at this moment is it's like a living, breathing element that consists of how whatever you believe in has created you, has stamped you. So, what does that mean? That means that your natal chart within it gives details as to how the moon, the sun, the constellation, and all the planets have marked you. When we were growing up, when a child was born and it looked like one of his parents, we would say, "Ooh, your mom marked you," and we would understand that that person has uncanny resemblance like one of their parents. Well, your natal chart is one of the most important, if not the most important, read of your lifetime. If you have gone to school and studied, most of us have, even if it's at an elementary level, you were programmed and conditioned to read items. Now, if you put more interest and more time into reading other things besides your natal chart, then you're doing a disservice to your existence. You won't get to know aspects of yourself from other POVs, dimensions, and you won't really be able to see what the stars, the moon, and the constellations have to say about you. I wanted to say that first. That's my take on it, and that's my way of conveying it to you in layman's term. Now, when you have your natal chart pulled, anyone that pulls your natal chart is basically getting a glimpse of you. And because they understand the importance of your natal chart, you are giving vital information to someone who you may or may not know. So whenever you're having your natal chart read or pulled, it's far more crucial than allowing somebody to have access to your bank account. Now, some of you may be like, no, because the bank account has money. Okay, well, there are more important and more vital things in this life experience, especially now and in the future, than money. And there are people who have an abundance of money who understand that. Money is not their concern. The only concern, only people that have a huge concern for money are people who don't have it. People who have abundance of it, that's not their major concern. You know, now there are luxuries that are associated with having it, but that's not their main focus. Anyway, back to the natal chart. So, the moment that you're born dictates what the celestial beings have to say about your existence here. Because we're in a matrix that we don't completely understand, but there are some things that just work, okay? And at one point, I wasn't into astronomy and astrology, and I started studying it, and I was very intrigued, and then I was kind of disenfranchised with it at some point, and then I got to this point of epiphany that now I get it, and I would attribute it to the talents and gifts that I have that are applicable when you're reading charts, because some people can just say, okay, look, and understand just the superficial aspect of astronomy and astrology, and be able to give you, your aspects and placements in your chart. But it really takes a being who has gifts and talents celestially to be able to navigate you to a more accurate understanding of your natal chart. You get what I'm saying? So, do you just want the hocus pocus, superficial, give me a fortune for today? Or do you really want to understand or begin to understand how important your natal chart is and these aspects? And I have to tell you that it is not something that you do it and you study your natal chart and then boom, that's it. I would advise anyone to have your natal chart and let it be something that you study continuously for the remainder of your existence here. Now, somebody might say, oh, that's just too much. I don't have time for that. Well, okay, I respect that. But once again, based on what I've learned and where this whole experience for the world is going, it benefits you to put this time and effort and study into your own personal natal chart. And then also, once you begin to understand, if you find out that you have gifts and talents to be able to understand what the moon, the stars, and the constellations are conveying to us, then it would be to your advantage to assist those that you love and care about in the same direction so that they will have a greater understanding. Now, I want to say this. Number one, I always say this. I've always known I was something more than just a little girl who was precocious and just, had no fear. I've always had the sense of who I was. And I found delight in who I was. It wasn't until I started school and started to go out into the world that I began to find difficulty. And now that I'm almost 60 years old, that I'm sure that the difficulty came because now I was taken out of my home with my natural parents and was allowed to flourish in these aspects. Didn't have everything I needed, but I was allowed to flourish. That when I was placed in school, I was placed around people who didn't know who they were. And it becomes very agitated and sometimes chaotic if a person knows who they okay, are placed in a setting or an environment where most of the people don't know who they are. And if you have certain proper placements in your natal chart, then you're going to exude certain energies and elements that is going to make these people who don't know who they are and probably have improper placement, it's going to cause the environment to be shaken up. And that's what happened for me. But nevertheless, I'm very stubborn, and I was not able to be broken. So let's get back to your natal chart. When you have your natal chart pulled, number one, I'm going to reiterate this. Do not just go to some random person on the internet. There are entities and there are systems out here that you probably don't even know exist, that if you give someone permission to pull your natal chart and you are an individual that has been brought into this earth who has a fire ass chart, when I mean a fire ass chart, that you come in here with multiple of proper placements, that you have royal stars in your chart, why do you think this experience trumps up being a star as something, as the epitome of the human being existence? You have celebrities who are labeled stars. You have superstars, mega stars. You have athletes who are stars. And then you have the royal family. There are aspects in your chart that deem you all of these things. And if you're not in their celebrity status or a professional athlete or a part of the Windsor family or any other, the Rockefellers, Kennedys, or whatever, then you don't get the support or you don't get the guidance to know that you possess these things in your chart. There are traps and obstacles that are placed in this experience that if you don't participate in their systems and their way of doing things, that these traps will attempt to break you and consume you, because if you're not used for their benefit, then it's not to their benefit for you to find out who you are, because it creates issues for them. Anything that is of power that does not allow itself to be controlled affects a controlled environment. So anyway, when you're having your natal chart pulled, remember, don't just go to someone on the internet. You don't know who these people are, and you're giving them, it's like giving a person, if you're wealthy, giving a strange person, because you don't know how the banking system works and you want to know more, that you give them access to your bank account, the PIN, the route number. You wouldn't do that. So don't just be out here giving random people your birth specifics and giving them permission to pull up your chart. Don't allow them to have that access to your celestial makeup. Any responsible person that is viewing your chart will convey to you the importance of having access to this, and make sure that you understand it and that you agree to it before they participate. I don't just, okay, now if I meet a man that I'm interested in, okay, and he's not into astronomy and astrology, the first thing I'm going to do at this point is look at his natal chart, just right off the rip. So if he's not into it, then, you know, if I ask him when his birthday is and where he was born and he gives it to me, because I'm going to be responsible with that information, because now I just want to find out, get to the chase, and cut out all the let's get to know you, because you can be with somebody for years, sometimes decades, and not really know them. But this natal chart, if you have the gifts and talents that I have and that my son has, we can sometimes look at people and already discern certain aspects in their chart, but we have gifts and talents to be able to look at a person's chart and get to the meat of the matter. And so it saves me the time of wasting time, especially at this point in journey aspect of the journey that I'm on. So, okay, that's right off the rip. Don't just give anyone permission to look at your natal chart. You don't know what the hell they're doing. If they're not telling you how important this and vital this information is, and how pertinent and personal and how powerful it could be for someone who knows how to manipulate it and utilize it, then you shouldn't be conversing with that person. You shouldn't be giving them this permission. Okay, so when you pull your natal chart, it's going to look like a wheel. And immediately, I can look and see if this person has a chaotic energy or this person has a balanced energy. I can immediately see if what happened, what the energy was doing when they first were born, and what the possibility the energy will do before this person expired. You can just look at the chart and see that. Now, on the left hand side is your ascendant, and that ascendant is going to be marked in the first house, and it's going to be marked by a zodiac sign. That's what most people call it. And if in that first house you have a placement of something like the galactic center, the great attractor, or any of the fixed royal stars, then we're starting to see that we're working with something. When you meet that person, that is something about that person that indicates that they have this placement in their ascendant. Because the ascendant is what people see. It is what people experience when they first meet you. It's like if you're walking in a department store, or just say you walk in Walmart and it's crowded. What people see about you initially is probably attributed to what is in your first house and your ascendant. Like in my first house, I have certain things that I won't get into right now. But so you start from the left and you deal with the ascendant. And then the circle or the pie of your natal chart is broken up into segments. And those segments are first house, second house, all the way to 12th house. So when you go around the circle, each segment is going to be considered a house. Each segment or each house has a purpose. Okay? And you have to, understand what those purposes are for each house. And then whatever's in that house, say for instance you have Scorpio in the first house. Now most of the people have done the work for you, and I'm not saying that everybody is accurate, but if you're going to do this yourself, it's going to take time. So you're going to click on some YouTube videos where someone is talking about Scorpio in the first house, and just start to listen. Now remember, you're not doing this to get an instant final answer. This is just to help you begin to maneuver to understand what these celestial beings have marked you with coming into this existence. And so it's going to take some time and effort. Now most people don't have the energy or the desire or want to do this. But once again, I have to reiterate that if you have read someone else's books about something else, and most of you have, then you owe it to yourself to spend the rest of your existence getting to know and understanding what's in your natal chart. There are some politicians, there are some world leaders who keep a copy of their natal chart in their offices and in their personal possessions, so that they can be able to look at their placements and their alignments and their aspects before they make certain decisions that affect the world. Just think about that. But we don't get told this on a wide scale. There are elites, that's what people call them, or famous people, or certain individuals who control fashion or organize sports. They don't allow their children to go to your schools. They allow their children to go to special schools, and these children are taught and conditioned and programmed to understand the importance of their natal chart and the things that they choose to do in life that's going to pose them a greater outcome of success. Yet our children aren't taught this in school. It's that thing I'm talking about. They understand the power of what I'm speaking, and they have things that they want to benefit from. So they utilize these aspects in individuals' natal charts to benefit what it is that they want to do. And those who don't participate, who have these glorious aspects in their chart, if you don't participate in their organizations or their ways of doing things, or become some type of entertainer or athlete or whatever, that they, like I say, they allow these traps and these obstacles, hoping to break you and to inundate you with so much more, like pandemics and burdens of mortgages and how am I gonna make it, and creating programs to break and sever families. So all these things are obstacles and traps that people get caught up in, that they just say, I don't have time to get into my natal chart. But then these same people who are pushing these obstacles and these traps wouldn't live their life without knowing and studying their natal chart. So what does that tell you? So anyway, uh, just remember, if you have anyone who's going to read your natal chart, don't let it be someone that you just found on the internet. You don't know what these people are doing with the information that they're finding. And if you got a fire ass chart, then you just would, it's like giving them access to your bank account or giving them access to your home, and you don't know them. So don't do that. Well, anyway, let's get back to the natal charts. Very, very significant. Like I said, I've always known that I was this wonderful being that had these abilities that I saw over time that other people didn't have. So now I know about royal stars. Now it's not telling me anything more than what I knew about myself. What I could say is it started to unfold and open up what the heavens had to say about my existence. How the uh, constellation of Ophiuchus has affected my experience here. How the Milky Way and the galactic center within the Milky Way has allowed me to be able to be aware of things that maybe someone else doesn't have that placement. Don't. I can see sometimes into the future. I dream things before they happen on a worldwide scale. I've always done that. I've always been in touch with things that you can't see that will give us information, more information about this experience from day to day in ways that people weren't telling me existed. So when I would convey these things to my parents, they would be in awe. How does she know this? I can't count the times that I've met people in life and they ask me, how do you just know this? And so now reading my natal chart, I would probably say you can attribute it to the galactic center in my chart. Now, having that placement with the galactic center is a very proper placement for me. And because the galactic center, they say, is within the Milky Way has now done this thing where it's like erupted and it starts to trickle all of this wonderful energy, this ability to be able to know things, to be creative, not like anyone else, to just be in tune with outer space. I'll put it like that in layman's terms. And so understanding that placement in my natal chart, it makes sense as to why I do things the way that I do, the way that I'm able to be able to create things that nobody else does. I had someone who was very dear to me would always say, it's just so dope. I've never seen anybody that thinks like you. The way that you do things is so intriguing to me, and it's one of the reasons I'm so attracted to you. So I would attribute that to my galactic center. Now, I do have to say this. Based on how I've studied, let's keep it simple. There are people that breed animals, okay? And you know, if you take one animal and you put it together, what the probability is. It's kind of like that celestially. When you have a person that comes into this earth realm and they have a fire ass chart, that's what I call them. They got all the bells and the whistles. They have, everything in its proper place, and then they have fixed royal stars. They can only reproduce that unless they reproduce with something that has fucked up placements. Example, I'll use myself. Like I said, I've always understood this about myself. And when it got to the point that my body was at a height of reproducing, something in me, the same thing that would tell me things before it happened, conveyed to me that I would have some wonderful product or, return in creating children. And I didn't understand what it was, but now I get it. I have certain placements, and in my chart, I have fixed royal stars. That's what the Persians deemed them. Okay? So that's what I stick with at this point, so that people can be able to go and search and find out information pertaining to this. So I have fixed royal stars in their proper placement in my chart, my natal chart. Now, my children have fire ass charts. I have 7 grandchildren who have fire ass charts. My son and I are so into this that we're amazed because we read our charts and then we go back and find things that we didn't have, we knew was there before. Because you don't just read a natal chart one time. Personally, you want to be insatiable when it comes to understanding your natal chart, because it's always something that's going to show up that you didn't see before, because it's like a living, breathing element each time that you look at it. So, okay, I'll give you an example how you can tell when a person has a fire ass chart. When you look at celebrities, superstars, athletes, musical artists, some of the biggest names in history have fixed royal stars in their chart. Some of them have impeccable placements, and I equate it to a fire ass chart. An example: Michael Jordan, Denzel Washington, Babe Ruth, my cousin Hank Aaron, Jay-Z, Jamie Foxx. These are some of the people that have, based on the birth dates that are being purported as their true and actual birth dates, they have fire ass charts. Look at Denzel. Watch a video on Denzel. Seeing Denzel tells me what's in his chart. Look at Michael Jordan. He's the face of basketball. He has a fire ass chart. You cannot be famous. You cannot be a celebrity. You can't be an A-list celebrity. You can't be an A-list athlete. You can't be an A-list anything unless you have those fixed royal stars in your chart. It never fails. I'll give you an example of something else. Jay-Z has a fire ass chart. Sorry. Based on the birth date, yes. And I was told that in a song, he said that his mother said of all the children, he was the easiest to give birth to. Your entrance into this realm, if natural, we're just going to deal with natural, not induced, not a result of some IVF. That's not natural. Sorry, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's the facts of the facts. But even in IVF, if people design their children, yeah, if that child comes in on the certain dates and it's a fire chart, that's just what that is. But you got to understand that the energy behind it, which has perpetuated it, is going to dictate how that chart plays out in that person's life. So if the purpose behind it is something deviant, then deviancy is going to play all through those aspects. So if that baby has a fire ass chart, then this baby probably is going to be prone to high levels of deviancy in aspects that could have been something else if it had been done naturally. So how you're conceived plays a vital part in how you fulfill your natal chart. Your birthing process, your birth story, and then also to how you're raised, because all those things are going to attribute to you eventually becoming an adult and making your own decision. And even if you do have a fire chart, if you make fucked up decisions, then that fucked upness is going to be magnitude on a bigger scale because you got a fire chart. It's just like people say, when a person gets wealth, it only magnifies who they truly are. Same way with your natal chart. So if you make fucked up decisions and you got a fire chart, then it's just going to be magnified on so many different levels, your fucked upness. Where someone else who, like Jeffrey Dahmer, the character Jeffrey Dahmer, he has aspects in his chart that you can look at and you say, okay, I see why he did what he did. I mean, I looked at what they said in his natal chart, And I'm like, oh, okay. He was just doing what he did. That's based on his natal chart. So now my question would be in the investigation of it all is to really go and investigate his parents. Number one, I really want to know, are they actually his parents? Are they really his natural parents? I want to go back and look at their early beginnings, how they met, and how he was conceived. And I guarantee you, all of that has something to do with how he came into this realm. Because some people, there's a natural flow to this existence. We live here and we think we know some things, but we really don't. Just like you're looking at these trees in the background, which is not really clear, but you can see that they're trees. They have a natural purpose, okay? And so do we. But there's some entities here who are not satisfied with the natural progression because it does not benefit their agenda and it does not benefit them as individuals and beings, that they want to put themselves in the most viable position, because anything that's living and breathing, first rule is self-preservation. So if you have an entity here who has the ability to take information given to it and utilize it, if that being is at the bottom of the chart as far as survival, thriving, viability, then that person, probably individual, if it's given access to something that can sustain your life, that individual is going to be insatiable with that information, because that individual's existence wants to survive, wants to have self-preservation, where whoever they got the information from just may naturally do it. It may not put much thought into, okay, I got to do this to survive, other than I'm just doing it. Example, there's some people who are so athletic that as small children, they're just doing things because they can do it, and not because, of anything else, just because they can. And then there's a child who can't quite do what they're doing, that looks at them and say, oh wow, how do they do this? I'm athletic to a degree, but how do they be able to do this without even thinking about it? And then they draw closer to that individual to find out why, in hopes of taking that information, practicing it, and then getting to the level to be able to do it to the same degree after practice, over and over and over again. And that's why in history you see scenarios where people like myself are just living their lives and creating things to make life more convenient naturally, and just being themselves, that someone else who doesn't have the ability to do it is on the outskirts watching, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is phenomenal. Do you know what I could do if I could do that? Do you know how many people I could get to buy into doing this that would pay me? So let me befriend this person or get close enough, because this person obviously doesn't view this like I do, and I can profit from it. How many inventions do you know have been stolen over history, and someone else became close to that individual and took it on as their own, because the person that created it really was just living their life and didn't understand the effect that what they were doing was having on other people, until that person came in and stole it. We know that's throughout history, because that's an indication that people who are not as gifted and talented, because they are living, breathing beings, they want to be able to preserve themselves. They attach themselves to people who have things that they don't. I've been in situations where I met someone, and I told you, Chris Jones, he came in and he's made his story public. I mean, at the brink of wanting to destroy himself. I don't care. I've been through some stuff. I've endured obstacles and situations, but I have not ever been to the point where I wanted to kill myself, because I've always known that no matter what my situation was, or however people viewed me, I knew that I was something. So I didn't want to destroy myself. Even when the obstacles and the traps came in and turned me away from who I was. But I didn't allow it to break me. I've always valued my matter of fact. I, so these are why these people can see what they see. Yes. And it's one of the reasons why I don't like to be vocal and show myself, because I don't want people getting caught up in the galactic center. I want you to be immersed in the vocalization of what is being conveyed. I've had someone who doesn't understand but profess that they know more than the average person tell me, well, people can't really get into what you're saying because you're visual. Well, we're at a point in time now where the visuality of it doesn't matter anymore. There's so many filters. People are so inundated with filters, and that was the whole program and agenda. And so caught up in the visual that isn't really reality, that now it is more effective for me to do my conveyances this way, because the filters and the makeup and all of the things that make you look like something you're not is so overdone that something like this, because of the substance in what I'm saying, is now more valuable than that. So before, when someone would do filters and do makeups and get a million views, and be commented on, that's over and done. That's not something. It was a wow at the moment, but it was like, I equated to this. When we were small, they celebrate Easter and you get these little chocolate bunnies, and I always wanted the chocolate bunny, and it will be hollow. I just trash it. And so that's kind of what that's like. So now what's really going to be beneficial is that which is meaty, and that's where we're going. So back to the natal chart. If you're going to have your natal chart read,
because why not?
please do not allow just anyone to read your natal chart. I've been guilty of doing that. You get what I'm saying? I remember one time early on in this journey, and my son, who is, oh wow, just, he has a fire chart. I just put it like that. I can get into that more. Hopefully, we can do a podcast and discuss it. It's just like, I'm like, why me? No, I don't say that. I'm sorry. Let me stop faking. I'm like, damn, I'm really the shit to be able to have given birth to him and his two siblings. I'm just gonna keep it real. So, now that doesn't mean that we haven't faced adversity. Because remember, if you're not a part of their system and program, those that understand the importance of these fire and charts, their traps and their obstacles that are pitted for you. And so none of us are immune to that, even myself. So anyway, just make certain when you're having your natal chart read that you just don't pick someone off the internet. Please. If a person is not stressing to you how vital and important this information is in your natal chart, then they shouldn't be trusted to have access to yours. There are people out here that know how to pervert and deviate and, manipulate energy to their advantage. That leaves you out in the cold. And I don't want to see that, happen to you, because we're going to a point in the future where your natal chart is going to be one of the most important, vital pieces of information, that document that you have in this existence. And remember, you have your social security card, your driver's license, state IDs or whatever, tax IDs, uh, all of this information are just remnants of your natal chart. So do you see how important your social security card is and your driver's license and your state IDs? The reason they have that much importance is because what they're torn from, the energy of what is so important, that and say, okay, well, let's just focus on the birthday and put it on a driver's license. Of course, that driver's license is going to be of great importance, and because it's come from something that is great. Whenever you take something naturally that exists in this realm and it has huge benefit, power, um, importance, if you're out to gain something for yourself, if you learn how to take essences of that and put it in a module and put it out as a product, you're going to have longevity. That's just it. So that's why this internet is so profound, because as beings, celestial beings, it is part of your makeup to collect information and data. It is natural. So for someone to create an engine that provides information, it's a remnant of something bigger that is natural. That's why the internet is so big. Give you another example. You have to have water and food for your physical essence to thrive. So if you tear off remnants of that and create an industry that provides food and water, you're going to always be able to profit, even if the food is trash and the water is trash, because you're taking a remnant from something that makes us have to sustain ourselves. Get it? Exercise. If we were nomadic and we were of the land and there was no cars or whatever, we would walk to hunt, to gather our food, to gather supplies to build a new place to live. So navigating and traveling is something essential for your self-preservation. So if you create an engine or a system off a remnant of that, you're going to always have a source that's going to be fed through people, even if it's a trash ass source. Walking is one of the most beneficial modes and means of transportation. So if you look at that, you see, okay, people have to navigate from point A to point B. Okay, well, I'm going to create an industry that's attributed to that, and I'm going to create a trash ass source. I'm going to create something that creates cars that move, that emit all these toxins and poisons. But because it is a remnant of mode and means of transportation, it's going to be fed. So do you get where I'm going? So, okay, that natal chart, your natal chart, is the single most important read and study that you could participate in this life experience. It shows you your entrance into this realm and what the moon and the sun and the constellation and these fixed royal stars have to say about you. Because that's what the Persians deemed them, royal fixed stars. And everything below has modeled that. It's a remnant of that. That's why you have the royal family. That's why the royal family has been so important all of these decades, because it was a remnant. Now I have to tell you, there are some of us, okay, the Hollywood Walk of Fame, where do you think that's a remnant of the fixed royal stars? You can't be on that Hollywood Walk of Fame without having fixed royal stars in your natal chart. I'm just putting everything on that's true. Pick any one of them. Anybody who has a star and get their true natal chart, I guarantee you they have fixed royal stars in their chart. You can't do it any other way. So people who are out here who come into this life experience naturally, that look at these stars, these fabricated stars, that's what I call them. I'm not saying that they're not authentic, but I don't know them. So I don't know if they're made up or not. But people that grow up looking at these stars and idolizing them know that they have something great within inside of them, and they figure, okay, if they can do it, I know I can do it because I'm great. If you don't participate in their program in their system, you're not going to get to the point of Michael Jordan or Denzel Washington or Jay-Z. You just won't do it because the stumbling blocks and the traps are set to gather you as you fall and stumble over these obstacles to trap you that you never get out. Because for you to be walking the face of the earth to say, look, I don't want to be a part of what you're doing, but I know who I am and I'm going to operate, that is one of the most detrimental beings to these agendas. Because if you're aware that you are of celestial royalty, ain't nothing anybody could do to you, period. Not even in death. Because to be aware of that automatically puts you in a certain position celestially that even if someone didn't appreciate you knowing that, you know how they have these conspiracy theories are, or people get knocked off. I don't give a fuck. If somebody, if because I know who I am, and I'm going to give you more about my natal chart, they should have killed me a long time ago before I got to know. So now, if I were to find a demise, because there are universal laws that you know nothing about, number one, they would be violating them, because then they would be destroying something. They've torn remnants from something that values my existence. So if you attempt to harm me, now that I know who I am and that I'm royalty in the flesh, then you got to answer to them, not me. And then if you were to be successful, they would only allow it, and it would only allow me to be more of what I am. And because I have physical knowledge of what goes on here, to lose this body would allow me to go and sprinkle to where I need to be to make sure this fucked up shit don't happen again. That's what I know about myself. So they have no choice but to comply with my birthright that's in my natal chart. So when I walk in to certain places that I wouldn't have been allowed in decades ago, because I know who I am and because it exudes and they've studied these aspects, they have to get up and give me a seat at the table. So no matter what obstacle I faced, I know who I am. So I'm not here I'm here to live out my life existence. If you have stolen from the essence of what I am, then you owe me. There's no way around it. You can't intellectualize yourself through it. You can't look at me and say, well, I don't like how you do. I don't like your delivery. Your delivery is off, or you think you this, or you think, no, if you fucking owe me, none of that matters. And to fight it only makes your penalty more. It drains your life force, because why would these celestial beings add to your livelihood? Even if you do study every fucking comedic code or anything in this life that is philosophy that makes your life better. I don't care if you do yoga 24 fucking hours a day and got perfect poses. If you transgress against these celestial aspects, and especially coming through me, then you're your own demise. What type of entity would do that? The type of entity that deserves whatever it is that they get. That's just like I said with Chris Jones. He came in, he wanted to kill himself, and he met me and he began to see gifts and talents and he began to benefit from it. I didn't say I want to charge you. He told me, he said, I can't partake of this any further without paying you. And instantly I knew that that was accurate. So I said, I tell you what, he asked me how much. I said, I can't put a price on the sessions because what I do is too valuable. So I said, what we're going to do is I'm going to allow you whatever value you place on these past 10, 15 minutes, you pay me placed on that value. So I'm knowing all the money in his bank account. If he was wanting to kill himself and he got exposed to my gifts and talents and the guidance that I gave him and he didn't want to kill himself, everything in his bank account, as far as I'm concerned, is not enough. So I knew whatever he offered wouldn't be enough, but I was going to accept whatever it was it offered, and then he offered, then it was going to also show me more of who he was. Because I saw his chart and saw that he had fucked up placement, that I would be willing to, show him and, use my gifts and talents to show him ways to counteract that. But it was going to take him allowing me to get in his head. And I wasn't getting in his head. If I got in his head, he admitted to that. If I got in his head to do him disservice or to destroy him, he would have just handed everything over to me without question. But I have more integrity and responsibility, and I'm not corrupt. So I met him where he was and allowed him to see the need and desire for the talents and abilities that I have, and he wanted to partake of it, and he benefit, and then he paid me, and he made promises that he didn't keep. Now he thinks because I had an abortion, and abortion is murder, that he thinks he knows enough about my existence to say, oh, now he don't have to keep his contract. Bullshit. Every day that he breathes, he's going to be taking more from himself by not committing to the celestial aspects that he benefit from through this earthly experience with me. Because I'm not to be fucked with and played with. There's not one individual that thought that they were fucking over me or doing something contrary to what should be done to me that has profited anything in this earth. I don't care what they had in the beginning. They've all met death, whether it be swift or slow. And I don't mean just physical death. So I'm not one to be fucked with. That's why people either stay away from me or we fight. And I got an Antares moon, and it's the celestial beings that just made me because I do have an Antares moon, I'm always steps ahead. So you can't battle me. And that's not arrogance. That's what Antares has deemed. When Antares knew I was coming in, it said, look, let's give her the moon aspect. Bitch, so don't be mad at me. And any fool might want to think that they can battle Antares, but anyone who knows what Antares is wouldn't even attempt. So when it comes to me and my Antares moon, when you meet me, you got one or two choices. Fight or flee. Fight or flee. And ain't no winning against an Antares moon. And even another Antares moon wouldn't even go and compete against an Antares moon because they already know what that means. So, I digress. But anyway, so yeah, you can't do it. That is why I have been in situations. Okay, let me explain something to you. The being that I am. And if you get offended, well then fuck you. But anyway, get it together. I was 7 years old, and someone's listening to this probably has the trauma of being molested, and I could counsel you and get into that and use my gifts and talents and abilities to show you something that nobody else probably has shown you. But most people don't even have the fortitude to address the trauma. So I just want to say that. But when I was 7, I was faced with an adult male, Caucasian, child sexual predator. His genitals exposed. Because of this connection that I have with the galaxy and, the sun, moon, the planets, the stars, and all these constellations, it warned me the entire day while I was at school that fatality was imminent. But if I listened to it, them, and what I was to do, I would come out on the other side unscathed. So the whole day I was at school, I was uncomfortable. And when I get to that point, my stomach starts to have this irritability. And it is very uncomfortable and you cannot control it. And that's how I was the whole day. And when it was time to go home, I was ready to go home. And it told me on my walk home is when I would meet this demon. And I did. Genitals exposed. Right there, arm's length. And because I followed directions that was given to me, I was able to get away and warn other children, including my sister. So that's what I'm saying. There's something that exists with me like that. I've been in a situation where someone looked at me, a man looked at me and wanted to rob me. And it was dark and I was alone. I've never been afraid to be out by myself because I'm not by my fucking self. And I had a male that was gonna rob me. Face could have grabbed me, whatever. And by the time I finished saying what I had to say, he looked at me. He said, "You're fucking crazy." He said, "I'm leaving." And I started laughing. And I won't tell you what I said. I've been faced with someone who looked at me and said, "You know what? You're here all by yourself. I could take you and chop you up and throw you throughout the city and your family never find you. Yet I'm here." I've been faced with a man who attempted to rape me and he rescinded. There are things with me that you cannot even fathom. Now, there are those who are shadow workers that know I'm not to be fucked with. They know that now they know I can see him. They didn't think I could see him. And yeah, I set up strategy for you. Not just in this lifetime, in other dimensions and other forms. Not somebody would say, "Oh, you crazy," and blah, blah, blah. No. I got proof. They've been quantum leaping, astral projecting, and cloning for what? Y'all don't even know nothing about. Some of you have the ability to do some of these things naturally, and people told you you were weird. And so what you did was you took it, wrapped it up, and threw it in the corner. You're denying your purpose. And I guarantee you, I can look in your natal chart and tell you where that aspect come from. So it is what it is. I have fixed royal stars in my chart. My firstborn son, who the moment that I conceived with him, I knew he was a boy without an ultrasound, and I knew what day he was going to be born, and I had my own mother turn on me, and I had my own OBGYN turn on me, and when it came down to it, he came out just like I said, and that OBGYN was contritious, almost like the experience totally changed him, that he was so limp that he could have bowed to the experience. That's what it seemed like he was doing. My mom the same way. She became so stern. She's like, "I don't understand why this all is why he's got to be a boy and he's got to be more." I didn't know why. I just knew. And she was like, "Well, don't you just want to just have a healthy baby?" And I was thinking to myself, no, that's not enough. But I didn't say that to her. And she got to the point that she was limp and contritious. And eventually she got to the point that she accepted who I was after decades. And she said, and she put it in her own words. She said, "I finally accepted it." She said, "You are my little prophet." That's the best way she knew how to term it. But it's so much more than that. But anyway, get to those natal charts, people. Your natal chart, personal natal chart, is the most important, most vital read and study that you could ever endure. I sometimes look at celebrities because they're out there. They put themselves out there to be seen. I don't see them to worship them. I see them because I see these celestial aspects. And I'm like, man, if you just would have a couple conversations with me. Because obviously you don't get it and understand. Because that's part of what my sun has presented itself, and I am done. I'm going to go and do what it is that I do, and I will hit you guys back later. Check out this video and see how many minutes I got up to. Well, hopefully somebody will listen to it today. Well, I know definitely in the future.